Now, the two houses of parliament will resume sittings this afternoon after a one-week induction of members on the parliamentary processes and legislation. Members of the National Assembly will approve appointment of members to the Committee on Selection, as well as debate on the supplementary budget allocation to the IEBC to run the fresh presidential election. Let's now link up with our parliamentary reporter, Patrick Amimo, joining us from our City Centre studios for an update on what we expect this afternoon from the reconvened sittings. Patrick, good morning. Bring us up to date with what we expect this afternoon.
Good morning, Michelle. It was last week we saw members of parliament, both in the Senate and National Assembly, take a short break for 1 week to familiarize themselves with the House procedures and also legislative process. And we expect this afternoon at 2:30 for the afternoon sittings, both houses to reconvene and take on the agenda. In the National Assembly, we'll be having a motion, the last on the President's address debate for the fourth day, which will be the last day. In the Senate, the same will be happening, but in the Senate, it will be their second day. They'll be debating the President's speech when he did open the House for their official commencement of work. But then in the National Assembly, the other pending matters is to do with the committee approval of members to the Committee on Selection. This committee is very, very critical in that it's membership that determines the constitution of other committees, membership in other committees. And already the Jubilee side has appointed selected 12 individuals, 12 of its members to this Committee on Selection, and NASA will have to submit seven names to this committee. The list of NASA is yet to be submitted to the National Assembly, but for the Jubilee side, they've already had their 12 proposed members whom the House will be approving this afternoon. And some of these members include, we have Jimmy Angwenyi, who is the Deputy Majority Leader in the National Assembly. We have Benjamin Washale, who is the the Majority Whip. We have Jude Njomo. The other members are Naisula Lesuda, Hatib Mashetani. We have Ruwaida Mohammed, who is the Lamu women rep in Lamu County. We have David Kosing. We have David Ole Sankok, who is nominated to represent people with disabilities. We have William Chepkut. There is Sophia Abdinur, John Kiari Waweru of Dagoretti South, and Dr. Korei Lemain. These are the 12 members of the Committee on Selection that have been proposed by Jubilee, which we'll expect they'll be approved this afternoon. And also in the Committee of Selection, we have other automatic members, the Leader of Majority and the Leader of Minority. For the NASA side, they are yet to present their 7 nominees. So ideally, this Committee on Selection has to be, it's composed of minimum of 11 members and maximum of 19 members. So it means that after Jubilee selected as there are 12 slots already in place, NASA has to provide the 7 remaining slots to add up to 19, the maximum 19 that is required for this particular Committee on Selection. We saw the previous 2 weeks, NASA did not present their list of members that will constitute the House Business Committee. That list is pending. They were supposed to present 3 names, but due to it appears the party had not agreed on the membership of this particular constitution and also the House leadership. But only 2 positions have been filled. That is the minority position, Leader of Minority in the National Assembly, which position has gone to John Mbadi, who is the ODM chairperson, and in the Senate we have the minority leader in the Senate will be Ford Kenya Party leader Moses Wetangula, who is also a co-principal in NASA. So those 2 slots in the minority leader in the Senate and in the National Assembly, those have been filled up. But for the other positions like the whips and their deputies, those positions are yet to be filled, and the party will be giving the way forward, especially probably after their parliamentary group meeting later this week on the way forward. But as it is, the House agenda will proceed. The Speaker of the National Assembly, we saw him 2 weeks ago say that the House will not be held back by some of those shortcomings from the NASA side. They will proceed with their legislative agenda because this time around, Parliament is an independent House and it runs its own calendar. And now that the process was kick-started, members are expected to continue with the House business. And we expect after these, members will also be looking at the estimates that will facilitate the electoral body to conduct its fresh presidential elections that have been scheduled for October 26th. IEBC had initially asked for 12 billion shillings, at least 12.5 billion shillings, but it's been scaled down to 10 billion shillings. And maybe also as members debate this particular sum or the figures, we've also seen some positive indications coming from IEBC yesterday when they did indicate that the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, is willing to fund the printing of ballot papers, which is a controversial aspect because we've seen the opposition NASA claiming that they don't want the printer Al Ghurair firm to print these ballot papers for the fresh election because they suspect the firm was involved in some malpractices. They're claiming that the 2.4 million extra ballot papers for the presidential election are yet to be accounted for by IEBC. And these were extra papers, ballots that were printed by Al Ghurair for the presidential election. NASA claims that some of these ballot papers might have been used irregularly to staff, to secure the win by the Jubilee candidate, President Uhuru Kenyatta. It is a matter that is still on the table. One of the conditions, minimum conditions that NASA has put on the table, claiming that Al Ghurair should not be allowed to print these ballot papers for the presidential election. And we've seen that UNDP is coming in to cater for that and ensure that these ballot papers are printed at its own cost in that budget they call facilitating electoral processes in Africa, and it's part of the partner states. So this is what is the agenda that is in the National Assembly this afternoon. In the Senate at 2:30 p.m. also when they resume their sittings, they will be debating the presidential address for the second day in the Senate, unlike in the National Assembly, who will be tackling the address for their fourth day. But in the Senate, they did set to debate the president's address for only 3 days. So today, this afternoon, will be their second day. And besides that, senators will also be looking at the annual reports and financial statements from various institutions, like we have the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. They will also be looking at the annual reports for the Office or the Commission on Administrative Justice, that is the Ombudsman. They'll also be looking at the annual reports for the Auditor General for the 2015-2016 financial year. So those are the matters that will be occupying our lawmakers in both houses this afternoon as they resume sittings after the one-week break to familiarize themselves with the House procedure rules. Michelle?
All right, many thanks.